The morning rush had already begun when Sarah hurried into the small retail store, slightly out of breath, but determined not to be late again. Being a single mother meant her mornings were never easy, getting her young son ready for school, preparing breakfast, and then rushing across town to make it to work on time. Still, she always showed up with a quiet strength, carrying her responsibilities without complaint. Her manager, however, didn't see her effort only. Her occasional lateness that day felt heavier than usual. Bills were piling up. Her son needed new school shoes, and her salary barely covered the essentials. Yet, as she tied her apron and stepped onto the shop floor, she forced a polite smile. Customers began to trickle in, each expecting quick service and perfect attention. Near the entrance stood a man who didn't seem to belong. His clothes were simple, almost worn, and his posture hesitant. He looked around, as if unsure whether he should even be there. Most employees ignored him, assuming he couldn't afford anything. But Sarah noticed the uncertainty in his eyes, the same kind she had seen in her own reflection during her hardest days. She approached him gently. "Can I help you find something?" she asked. The man hesitated before speaking. I'm looking for a jacket, something warm, but I don't think I can afford what's here." Sarah glanced at the price tags. If he was right, the store wasn't cheap, but something inside her refused to let him walk away empty. She led him toward a section with discounted items, carefully picking out a decent jacket that was still within reach. "This one is on sale," she said softly, "and, if you don't mind, I can use my employee discount for you." The man looked at her, surprised. "You'd do that for me?" She smiled. Everyone deserves to stay warm. As she rang up the purchase, her manager suddenly appeared behind her, his expression darkening as he realized what was happening. "What do you think you're doing?" he snapped. Sarah froze, her heart sinking. She tried to explain, but the manager wasn't interested. To him, rules were rules, and what she had done was a clear violation. "Hand in your apron," he said coldly. "You're fired." The words hit her like a storm. Fired. Just like that. Sarah removed her apron slowly, her hands trembling. She glanced once at the man she had helped, managing a faint smile, despite everything. Losing her job terrified her, but deep down, she knew she couldn't regret choosing kindness. Sarah stepped out of the store, with her apron folded in her hands, her mind still struggling to process what had just happened. The noise of the street felt distant, almost unreal, as if the world had continued moving while her own had suddenly paused. She had just lost her only source of income over a simple act of kindness. For a moment, fear crept in, tightening around her chest. Rent, school fees, groceries. How would she manage now? Behind her, the store doors opened again. Sarah waited. She turned to see the same man she had helped rushing toward her, now holding the neatly packed jacket. His expression had changed. There was urgency in it, but also something deeper, something she couldn't quite place. "You didn't have to do that for me," he said, his voice softer now, but more composed. "You risked everything." Sarah gave a small, tired smile. "It's okay. You needed it more than I needed the job." In that moment, the man studied her face carefully, as if trying to understand how someone could be so selfless, even when life was clearly not easy for them. After a pause, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. "Would you mind coming here tomorrow?" he asked, handing it to her. Sarah looked down at the card and froze. It wasn't just any card. It carried the name of one of the largest retail corporations in the city. Her eyes widened as she looked back at him, confusion spreading across her face. "I don't understand." The man took a slow breath. "I wasn't entirely honest with you. My name is Mr. Rahil Khan. I own this store, and many others like it." Sarah blinked, unable to believe what she was hearing. The man she thought she was helping a struggling stranger was actually the billionaire owner. "I visit my stores like this sometimes," he continued, "to see how people are really treated. Most ignore me. Some ask me to leave. But you helped me without hesitation." Sarah felt a mix of shock, embarrassment, and disbelief. I didn't know," he nodded. "That's exactly why it matters." There was a brief silence before he spoke again, this time with a gentle firmness. "Come tomorrow. I think you deserve more than what you lost today." As he walked away, Sarah stood still, clutching the card in her hand. Her heart was still racing, but now, alongside fear, there was something new. Hope. The next morning, Sarah stood outside the tall glass building printed on the card, her heart pounding with uncertainty. She had barely slept the night before, replaying everything over and over in her mind. Part of her feared it had all been a misunderstanding, that she would walk in and be turned away. But another part, the stronger part, told her to try. Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside. The interior was nothing like the store she had worked in. It was grand, polished, and filled with quiet professionalism. A receptionist greeted her politely, already expecting her arrival. Within minutes, she was escorted to a large office with floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the city. Inside, Mr. Rahil Khan stood waiting. But this time, he looked completely different, dressed in a sharp suit, confident and composed. Yet his eyes were the same, calm, observant, kind. "I'm glad you came," he said, gesturing for her to sit. Sarah nodded nervously, still unsure of what to expect. "I reviewed your record last night," he continued. "No complaints from customers. In fact, quite the opposite. You've been one of the most sincere employees in that store." Sarah lowered her gaze. "That didn't seem to matter yesterday." He sighed slightly. "Sometimes people in charge forget what truly matters." There was a pause before he leaned forward, his tone becoming more serious but also warmer. "I don't reward people for following rules blindly," he said. "I reward those who understand humanity." Sarah looked up, her eyes meeting his. "I'd like to offer you a new position," he continued. "Store manager. Not just there, but at one of our flagship locations. Better salary, flexible hours, and support for your son's education." Sarah felt her breath catch. "Manager. Me." He smiled. "Kindness, integrity, courage. You've already proven you have what most leaders don't." Tears filled her eyes. But this time, they weren't from fear or loss. They were from relief and something even deeper, recognition. "Thank you," she whispered. As she stepped out of the building later that day, the world felt different. Not because life had suddenly become easy, but because she had been reminded of something powerful. Sometimes the very moment you lose everything is the moment your life begins to change. And all it takes is one act of kindness.